Hello everyone, I'm Kate Fagan. I teach in the writing program here and also do some work with the music department. And I'd like to welcome you all and say how tremendously fortunate we are today to be treated to two blues legends in Phil Wiggins and Dom Turner. Phil Wiggins' harmonica playing and songwriting are celebrated globally. He really is regarded as a great figure of the blues, particularly in the Piedmont or Tidewater style of playing. He's collaborated over many decades with a host of terrific blues musicians. At the forefront of that collaborative work has been his much-loved duo with his partner in crime for many years, John Cephas. They made over a dozen albums together, and last time he was in Australia, it was as part of that duo, and that's where Phil met Dom Turner, who is also a legend in blues, renowned as a founding member of the blues powerhouse, the Backsliders, who for the last decade, as you might know, have had Rob Hurst in their lineup. Dom is also a renowned guitarist and educator, collaborator, with a particular interest in the recent years in crossings between blues and slide string forms and Southeast Asian and other East Asian cultures. And I'm delighted to say that he's beginning doctoral research work with us this year, pursuing those leads. So the way this is a workshop forum, you'll be familiar with the format. We're going to, very kindly, Dom and Phil are going to give us a taste of what they do and then speak for a few moments about some of those influences and directions. Then they're going to perform a set for us, and then we have a panel where you're all very welcome to chime in and ask them about anything that you'd like to know about their style. So please join me in welcoming Phil Wiggins and Dom Turner.
Roberta, where are you? Can't you hear me call? Well, I'm 1,000 miles away from home with my back against the wall. Well, I reached for you in the dark last night. My eyes were open wide. I couldn't see you, girl, I couldn't feel you. You know, I broke right down and cried, and I cried, Roberta, where are you? Can't you hear me call? Well, I'm 1,000 miles away from home with my back against the wall. Well, last night I dreamed I heard you calling my name. Your voice was music to my ear. Well, I woke up this morning in a hotel room, and I was drowning in my tears, and I was crying, Roberta, where are you? Can't you hear me call? Well, I'm 1,000 miles away from home with my back against the wall. Let me call it one time. Searched these streets for a friendly face. I stopped in every juke joint in this town. Well, it's a low-down shame and a dirty disgrace, the way the people been turning me down, and I'm crying, Roberta, where are you? Can't you hear me call? Well, I'm 1,000 miles away from home with my guess I'll make it back home again, and that's a long way. Meanwhile, each and every night I pray for an angel of mercy to save us singing. Man, I'm going down slow. Roberta, where are you? Can't you hear me call? Well, I'm 1,000 miles away from home with my back against the wall. Well, with my back against the wall. Let's take it home, man. With my back against the wall. All right, thank you.
Thanks very much, folks.
Thank you so much. We're so happy to be here this afternoon with you to play a little bit of blues for you. So, you know, I was born in Washington, D.C. I consider myself to be basically, when you think about like the great migration of African Americans from the deep south to the north, I consider myself to be kind of in that first, a first generation north of the Mason-Dixon line person. And what that means, my parents, you know, were from Birmingham, Alabama, and when I was growing up in Washington, D.C., the neighborhood, the community I lived in, everybody, all the children were basically born there in D.C. All the parents were from the Deep South, and so all the customs and traditions and all that were being carried on in the community were from the Deep South, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, all the way to Mississippi. And for a lot of different reasons, people came north, which I'm sure you're familiar with some of the history, to try to make a better life for themselves. And what people used to do is make music in their own homes, the way people used to bake bread in their own homes and can vegetables and whatnot. And so this music that we're playing, a lot of what we'll be playing this afternoon is called Piedmont or Tidewater blues. Some of it's called Mississippi Delta blues. So there are styles like called the Texas style. These are all different terms that basically, for the musicians, these phrases are not so important to us. I mean, they kind of set the music in a particular region, but to the musicians that created this music and in the environment that it was created in, it was just good dance music, good music for celebrating, and that's what it was created for. People worked hard, and if you know about the history, it was very rare that people got justly compensated for their labor. So it was very unrewarding kind of life, and people felt like they really needed to celebrate in order to keep moving forward, and that's how this music was created. So it wasn't the kind of music where we're doing now. Everybody sits in their seat and claps politely. It was a lot of talking and arguing and cursing and fighting and playing cards and eating food and drinking, and this music was the soundtrack to those house parties, and so that's where it came from, and that's why I'm here today to share that with you.
The last song that we played is actually one of Phil's songs, yes. Roberta, and Phil and I first met roughly 30 years ago. I was travelling to the US. I'm obviously Australian, but heavily influenced in blues, and I've been playing sort of blues guitar since I was a teenager. Although, listening to a lot of other different music forms as well, rock and whatever was available at the time. But I met Phil way back then, and then in the 1990s with my group that I tour with in Australia, the Backsliders, we were fortunate enough to support Phil Wiggins and John Cephas on their tours in the late 1980s and throughout the 90s in Australia, and we became good friends then. But aside from a friendship, but the connection is with the music itself, in that we are both. I mean, as Phil was saying, there's lots of different music forms, and we'll unpack a little bit of what some of the different forms are. In fact, then we're going to do a song in a minute that fits into what Phil was talking about as being the Piedmont style of blues, and so we'll unpack that. But we are interested in those same various forms of blues. We actually don't care, like Phil said, what the names of these forms are. That doesn't really matter. It's just what appeals to you as a musician and as a listener. And so this music form is going back to, probably the late 1800s. It would have started. We can only pick up the recorded period from sort of around about 1915, 1920, when this kind of music started to be recorded. It was actually recorded in the late 1800s, but on sort of disc, and became more readily available and more accessible. So we're kind of going back to that period, although the songs themselves have probably a deeper history at times. And we also, like as I said, Phil wrote that last song. We also write our own songs as well in that tradition. But look, just to demonstrate one thing, you folks probably know of the typical 12 bar blues. I'm not doing 12 bars here, but it's the 3-chord form. That kind of thing. Well, that's one it's a great form, but it's just one very limited form within the blues tradition. There's a lot of variants on that. And we're going to do one now that's in the Piedmont style of blues, and this is Phil's territory completely, so I'm going to shut up on this one.
No, help yourself, man. So you're with us, right? You're so quiet out there, I can't tell whether...
Some of you saw us last weekend in the Blue Mountains Music Festival, I believe. You're really quiet. Maybe hand up quietly if you did. No hands? That's like, I can't even see from here, actually. So anyway, that doesn't matter.
So, the tune we're going to do right now, this is one of my favorite songs by a man named Mississippi John Hurt, which is interesting because, there's this style called the Piedmont or the Tidewater style, which what defines it is the technique that's used on the guitar of picking out a melody line on the treble strings and picking out an alternating bass line on the bass strings with your thumb at the same time. Well, one of the best known practitioners, and this style is associated with the region called the Piedmont, those are the foothills, which is on the east coast of the United States, starting with maybe Virginia and North Carolina, South Carolina, the northern parts of Georgia. So this is where this is associated. But one of the best known practitioners of this style is a man named Mississippi John Hurt, which you might have gathered from his name that he's from Mississippi. And see, you're not with me, are you? Anyway, so here's one that drives the ethnomusicologists nuts. It's called "Let the Mermaids Flirt with Me." Oops. It helps to have the right key. Blues all in the air. I can't stay here no longer. I have no steamship fare. When my earthly trials are over, cast my body out in the sea. Save all the undertaker's bills and let the mermaids flirt with me. I do not work for pleasure. Earthly peace I'll see no more. The reason I work at all is drive the wolf from my door. When my earthly trials are over, I cast my body out in the sea. Save all the undertaker's bills and let the mermaids flirt with me. My wife controls our happy home, a sweetheart I cannot find. The only thing that I I can call my own is a worried and a weary mind. When my earthly trials are over, I cast my body out in the sea. Save all the undertaker's bills and let the mermaids flirt with me. Blues all on the ocean. My sweetheart has forsaken me. Thank you. I'll have to swim across the sea. When my earthly trials are over, I cast my body out in the sea. Save all the undertaker's bills and let the mermaids flirt with me. Blues all in my body. My sweetheart has forsaken me. If I ever see her face again, I'll have to swim across the sea. When my earthly trials are over, I'll cast my body out in the sea. Save all the undertaker's bills and let the mermaids flirt with me. Save all the undertaker's bills and let the mermaids flirt with me. All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
So you could probably hear from the guitar players and in the audience and piano players too that the guitar playing in that is more like a piano where there's a bass going, like an alternating bass. That kind of style, and that's what's typical of the Piedmont style of blues, where there's the melody playing on the top strings. And Phil, do you have a theory why in that region, in the Piedmont region, why the musicians played in that more delicate style?
You know, I really don't have a theory about that. I mean, it seems that as you mentioned, it seems that it's an attempt to make the guitar, you know, imitate or to have a more piano kind of a feel or sound, you know, in the ragtime. But I don't really know why that particular style developed more in the area. Possibly because of the closeness to the to Appalachian
Mountain
regions and that type of music that came from there, which was more I don't know what they call the old timey and the bluegrass and all, and maybe those two cultures influencing each other.
The use of the banjo and
well, the banjo, you know, it's really an African instrument, and really was very popular in the black community up to a certain point where the guitar took over, and then the banjo fell way out of favor when the whole minstrel show thing started happening, and black people really rejected the banjo because of that. And now it's really great that now, you know, in recent years, I'd say over the past 10 or 15 years, the black community in America, the African American community in America, is re-embracing the banjo, but you know, well, I mean, we can talk about this later when we're talking, because right now we should be playing some music, but I mean, there's an instrument from West Africa called the kora, which is really closely kind of associated or with the Piedmont style that black people created on the American continent. You know, there's a correlation between the technique that's used on the kora and the technique that's used on the guitar in the Piedmont style, which, you know, we can talk about that a little more later, and we can sort of maybe demonstrate some of that for you. Right now, I think we'll do one. This one is more, I guess you would say this is more from like kind of the Delta style, even though it's a song that I made up myself, and I'm not from the Delta. But it's one that's very influenced by Mississippi Delta style players.
And without making Phil too nervous, listen very closely to the lyrics, because it kind of, there is humour in blues. There's a lot of humour in blues songs. There's a lot of all sorts of things, you know.
Although
all
I
sorts
have,
of feelings. But
I have to admit that I didn't realize this song was funny until after the first time I played it.
it's
I was
funny.
like, why are people laughing? Oh, okay. So anyway, here we go. Rocky was born in a dry spell, about a mile from Kill Devil Hill. Rocky was born in a dry spell, about a mile from Kill Devil Hill. Some say his hard luck spirit, well, they say that it's rooting around there still. It was raised in the school of hard knocks, and he played in a hard yard. Educated in the school of hard knocks, and he played in a hard yard. He could have stood some love and affection, but it just was not in the cards. Rocky, they built himself a house of bricks. Well, and he filled it full of gin. He built himself a house of bricks. And he filled it full of gin. Well, it wasn't that he drank so much, but he just only had thirsty friends. Come on, Don, play it for me, Don. Well, he couldn't wait to see them leaving. Just as soon as he was done. Rocky got killed in a card game, and it was a game of solitaire. Now you're listening. He got shot dead in a card game, and it was a game of solitaire. We're gonna take it home right here. Some say he got caught cheating, but I can't say, 'cause I wasn't there.
The next one is a different style that we're going to play. It comes from Mississippi. But people are probably most familiar with the Mississippi Delta style of blues. This is a related form, but it comes from Mississippi Delta. Sort of starts at around about Clarksdale, Mississippi. It's sort of probably about an hour and a half or so, maybe further down south from Memphis, and it goes right down to about Yazoo City. Anyway, it's a region, and it's the flat delta land that was farming land. It used to be, back in the 1800s, it was, I think 1700s, it was jungle actually, and it was cleared for farming. Panthers roam freely in that area apparently at that time. But anyway, in the north part of Mississippi, it's quite different. It's a bit more like the Blue Mountains, very much like the Blue Mountains in that it's a mountainous area, cooler. And there's a different musical form there that's probably even rawer than the form from the Mississippi Delta, and it relies much more on percussive rhythms and like repetitive licks. It's in some respects trance music is very related to the music from that area. The idea is to get a groove going and people just go off into their own thoughts on the groove pattern. But this is one by the great exponents from that area, the great R.L. Burnside. This is called Going Down South. I'm going down south, 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 the chilly winds don't blow. I'm going with you, babe, 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 I don't care where you go. That's what I told her. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, she asked me why. I said, some other man, some other man, some other man, some other man, some other man is always hanging around. I'd rather be dead, I'd rather be dead, I'd rather be dead, I'd rather be dead, I'd rather be dead than 6 feet in the ground. Yeah, 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 6 feet in the ground. You tell him, Phil. Was that the peace sign you gave me then, Kate? Sure,
Okay, cool.
Sure, that sounds great.
All right. So, I'm going to do one right now. You know, I've heard myself very often over the past 30 years when people were interviewing my former partner, John Cephas, and I, they would ask me, you know, where and how I connected with the blues. And I used to always talk about, and I still do, talk about my grandmother's church in Titusville, Alabama, where, you know, growing up, I spent a lot of summers down there. And my grandmother's church was about 2 blocks from her house. And she used to like to go there on Wednesday night for Wednesday night prayer meeting, which was the elderly women of the church singing prayers and praises. And she didn't like to walk, by the time the prayer meeting was over, it was dark out, and she didn't like to walk home by herself in the dark, so she used to get me to go with her, and I would walk her to the church, and I would wait outside and for the prayer meeting to be over, and then walk her back home. And so, you know, standing out there in the dark, listening to those women singing prayers and praises, it was such an emotional, such a powerful sound and experience. And even though the subject was, you know, the music was sacred music, but the sound of it and the feel of it to me was pure blues. And that's, I think, really where I fell in love with the sound of the blues. And so that we can chalk that up as like a positive association with the church. And so to create balance, I'm going to sing you a song about Jimmy Bell, who kind of reminds me actually of my grandmother's preacher, which we won't get into that story today. But you know, some preachers are about, you know, redemption and grace and forgiveness and love and compassion. Mm-hmm. And then some preachers, like Jimmy Bell's about Jimmy Bell. sweet, baby, make a man a suit. Make a man a suit. Make a man a suit. He got enough greenback dollars, sweet baby, make a man a suit. Well, Jimmy Bell told his sister, on your knees not to shout. He said, if you don't pay your monthly fee, I'm gonna turn you out. I'm gonna turn you out. He said, if you don't pay your monthly fee, I'm gonna turn you out. Well, Jimmy Bell in the pulpit, the Bible in his hand. Well, all his sisters sitting back in the corner crying, Jimmy Bell's my man. Well, Jimmy Bell's my man. Well, Jimmy Bell, my man. Well, all his sisters sitting back in the corner crying, Jimmy Bell, my man. Well, Jimmy Bell told the sexton, go and tone the bell. He said, 'cause some of these old members here, well, sure is going to hell. Well, sure is going to hell. Well, sure is going to hell. He said, 'cause some of these old members here, well, sure is going to hell. La 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 la. Jimmy Bell told his wife, he told her late at night, he said, if times don't get no better here, babe, up the road I'm going. Up the road I'm going. Up the road I'm going. He said, if times don't get no better here, babe, up the road I'm going. Up the road I'm going. Up the road I'm going. So I think that's just about it. One more song?
Yeah, we're just sort of checking in on the time. We've got the band till 3. Are a lot of people staying or staying? You're going to stay? I say play another and then we'll talk.
Okay.
Okay.
The last one that Phil is going to sing goes way, way back to one of the first blues musicians to record, and that's a guy by the name of Charlie Patton. And if you took a line to Blues Fest this year, where we're playing, and you saw the headlining act, which is the Black Keys, and you drew a line from them, it'll go straight back to Charlie Patton. It's kind of one of the big influences on them and sort of every musician after, really, in the kind of blues tradition. Everything that you hear that's rock today is really coming that far back and further, but Charlie was kind of a catalyst there. In saying that, though, this is a very unusual one of his, isn't it? It's much sweeter.
It is really unusual, and I don't know how he got this influence. I don't know if any of you are familiar with a great Bahamian guitar player, Joseph Spence. But to me, this song sounds a lot like that, and I don't know how Charlie Patton would have got his ear next to some Bahamian folk music, but this is, it's a real unusual one for a Mississippi Delta player. It's called Some These Days. Some these days you'll miss your honey. Some these days I am going away. Some these days you'll miss your honey. You will miss me, sweet dream, by my going away. Some these days you will be sorry. Some these days I am going away. Some these days you will be sorry. You will miss me, sweet dream, by my going away. You will never know what your friend will do when he's gone away. You will miss him on returning. You will miss me by my going away. You will miss him on returning. You will miss me, sweet dream, by my going away. Some these days you'll miss your honey. Some these days I am going away. Some these days you'll miss your honey. You will miss me, sweet dream, by my going away. Some these days you will be sorry. Some these days I am going away. Some these days you'll be sorry. You will miss me, sweet dream, by my going away. Thank you. All right. Didn't Dom play that one pretty? Yeah.
Dom and Phil have just released an album called Owing the Devil a Day's Work, independent and distributed by Rocket. So if you want to know more about that, perhaps you can ask Phil and Dom at the end of the show.
Interestingly, we have copies right here.
I can't believe it. Get out of town. They do. So you could ask them about it then. Bruce has asked a couple of people, Jess, Joseph and John, to come on up and have a few questions. If you've got them too, that would be terrific. So we might ask John to kick us off with a question to Phil and Dom.
So much. Thanks so much for that. It was so enjoyable. I guess I'm interested in. I mean, you've told us quite a bit about how you feel the music relates to various traditions, and I was particularly interested, Phil, in you saying what a seemingly, well, maybe not unnatural environment, but what a different environment this is compared to the kind of more celebratory party sort of atmosphere, or the kind of the rarefied concert setting seems very, very, very different. I'm just wondering, first of all, what, if anything, you feel is lost in the concert setting, or if it makes if it sort of places the tradition in a particular time period, does it refer to earlier practices? Obviously, it's a living tradition for the both of you, but I'm just wondering about how you negotiate that thing of a tradition which is kind of dislocated from its original context.
Well, let's see. I'm grateful that people want to hear it, and so we get to sit in an auditorium like this, and people are here to listen and all. What I miss, though, I mean, this music was originally and probably just about every note of music that I've ever played in my life has been dance music, and it's rare, if ever. It's like never presented with the dance. And actually, right now, for myself, I have several combos at home where I'm really trying to reconnect the dance with the dance music. Particularly a lot of this, what's known as the Piedmont and Tidewater style, a lot of that dance tradition has been pretty much lost, And but I'm really excited about a couple of projects I have going. One where I'm working with a young guy who's an urban dancer, and he's gone back and met some of the older generation of like buck dancers and percussive dancers from like North Carolina and Virginia. But also, I mean, for us, I mean, we realized that it's not just the music that was created or the steps that were created back then that are traditional, but also the process. And the process is hearing the music and responding to it, just reacting to it. And that's what he's been doing. And so in that way, we're kind of reconnecting the dance with the music. I have to say that, like, okay, I played with the same partner for over 30 years, John Cephas, and he came up in that generation where it was his job to provide the soundtrack for the party and to provide the rhythm for the beat of the music. And a lot of the younger folks that I play with, guitar players that I play with back home, did not have that experience. And the feel is very different. The rhythm is not as strong and not as, as deep as what John used to do. So there's a difference.
I got to say, my foot was tapping and my body was moving to what Dom was laying down the whole set, though. So there's something going on there.
Well, Dom is a whole nother story. So
he was talking about younger musicians. See? So I was thinking, do I classify as a younger one or not? I don't think so. Yeah.
Thanks so much. I was reading about you both, and a few people have said that due to the mastery of your instruments, that it's meant that you've transcended stylistic boundaries. And I was wondering if that directly relates to the fact that you both are quite good at improvisation, or if it's an influence of a number of different genres that you're kind of blending together.
Yeah. For me, I mean, I love all types of music. I mean, for me, there are only two types of music: music that touches me and music that doesn't. You know? And but I listen to lots of different styles, and I steal from every just about every genre and every instrument I steal from, and I try to put it into my harmonica. You know, yeah.
Mm. Actually, sometimes Phil and I have talked about this whole concept of improvisation and that sort of stuff, and I mean, you know, you got a lot of time on your hands driving around in cars from gig to gig and that sort of stuff. So we end up talking about music. But Phil was talking about recently about the fact that what we're both trying to do is vocal. We're trying to emulate a human voice kind of thing. So you know, when I'm trying to make vocal sounds on the guitar. You know, hence the concept of a bass, and then. This is a simple example, but the gospel tune Amazing Grace. So there's a bass line, but you can hear on the slide, I'm going to play what is the voice. And the way that I approach the playing is to try and make it as vocal-like as possible by, you know, playing harder or softer. The same as you do with a voice. So, and Phil's, if you can hear, I mean, he's making it laugh, sing, cry. Just about every emotion comes out of that little instrument that he's got. So, but I'm much the same as Phil as well. I'm influenced by a lot of different genres. Typically, though, most of the things I'm influenced are African American music forms. Aside from that, there are various Asian music forms, but usually the more traditional forms. And there seems to be some similar pathway to all of these vernacular kind of styles of playing, you know. There's a connection there.
So you find like commonalities between them and it manages to unify them. Is that what you're saying? You find like commonalities between all those styles and just bring them in together to unify them? Yeah,
I mean, for example, I did a cross-cultural project with a Vietnamese stringed instrument master, and he plays a kind of music in Vietnam, my pronunciation's bad, called Cải Lương. It's like an old theatre sort of style, long form of music, lots of improvisation, lots of long songs, and it works around a similar concept. It's not chordal, it's mainly notes, and he plays, the instruments that he plays are stringed, but he bends the notes a lot to get vocal inflections, or he actually plays lap slide guitar as well, which is very odd for that sort of music form. He's this gentleman's his name is Kim Sin. But anyway, Kim doesn't know blues he doesn't know anything about, he's never heard it before, and he doesn't speak English, my Vietnamese is limited, but we had a connection. From the moment we played, we were able to draw on commonality. You know, my head was spinning with what's some form that I know. He'd start some song and I'd think, it's kind of like Cajun music. I know Cajun music, I can link that in, you know. There was a really interesting experience in the middle of one song that we were completely improvising on a one chord thing, and he went into doing a lick that is straight out of a 1920s Blind Willie Johnson song that I know. He's never heard that song, you know, but it doesn't really matter. It's more about the connection of the notes and all of that sort of stuff. So, so I think there's a connection, and that ends up influencing me. And
Brilliant, thanks.
We'll have a question from Joseph and then over to everybody.
That was really lovely, guys. Thank you. A lot of emotion.
Thank you.
Thank you. The question I have, it's for both of you. How has the collaboration affected the way that you approach the blues?
Okay, for me, I can say that playing with Dom, and I've thought a lot about this and why it is, but when I play with him and I'm hearing him play and I'm kind of playing off him and connecting with him, it brings out in my playing some really kind of deep, like, roots like, I don't know, for some reason I feel and sound even more Southern when I'm playing with Dom. And I'm not really sure why that is, but I think that part of it has to do with, like, I think in my culture, and I think it probably has a lot to do with the history, but we're not like real sentimental people in general. I mean, like, you know, we tend to, like, you know, get a hold of something and then something new comes along and we, you know, move on to it. But I think that well, for me, okay, here's my theory, is that Dom, from being, you know, from so far away and connecting with this music, that he loves it in a real, you know, almost like a sentimental way, and so, like, it's almost like sweeter or stronger or something, but it brings out like a different feel, a stronger feel in me playing with it. It's my theory.
That's good theory. From my end, it's it's changed. It has definitely. I mean, everything you do changes your style, but aside from the fact that, you know, Phil's clearly an absolute master of the instrument. But the approach is, I mean, I've always had the approach, I don't like things too organised, you know, and to give an example, actually I'm going to preface this slightly by, if you're playing with people that you get along with, I think it's easier. You don't have to get along with people to play well with them, you know, that doesn't really matter, but, and we have a lot of similarities in our personality, aside from being left-handed, but, you know, we don't like Frank Sinatra, for example, and it goes on from there. Anyway, what was I getting at? Is that when we first decided to collaborate, I was going to the US, that was last year, even though we've known each other for many years, we hadn't played formally together, just kind of jamming a little bit and so. But I was going there last year, and I'd organised some gigs, and Phil organised a gig near his place in Maryland, a fantastic gig, and we had all great intentions of getting there early and running through the songs, and because we'd never actually done a gig together. But we actually got there in the afternoon and sat down, and I was kind of thinking, I hope he doesn't want to kind of overdo things and go over and over songs. But actually, I think we sat down, we probably did maybe 2 songs or something, and it was like, yeah, okay, I'm getting a bit hungry, what about you? And but what had happened was we both realised that we didn't need to overcook. We could each lead a song, you know, and the other person could follow. So we're both really strong listeners. And that's, for me anyway, that's what I've always been into, is that a musical performance is a one-off thing. It's only happening now in this period of time. And the next time we play, that's a different one. We might do the same songs, but I'm going to do different licks at different points. And the audience is going to be wondering what's going to happen next. And I mean, that's the idea. It's not kind of banging out a bunch of songs we've learned off by heart. So I think that's one of the reasons why we've connected.
Fantastic.
Okay, questions from the floor, yeah.
I just want to ask a technical question. I was watching Phil and I was like, how are you singing and playing? Where do you breathe?
Oh, boy. Well, let's see. I don't know. I mean, I guess one explanation is that the harmonica, you know, it works, you know, like drawn in and blown out. So while it really may look like I'm working hard, I'm really not working that hard.
That's not true.
And I get to breathe as I'm playing. You know, I mean, what happens though? I mean, because I spent 30 years accompanying John Cephas, who had just a beautiful, you know, velvet baritone voice, and I didn't sing a lot, you know, in that combo, and so now I'm singing a lot more. And I noticed, like in Jimmy Bell, for example, I forget that I have to have the harmonica close by in order to fit that lick in there. Sometimes I'm like this, and then oops, I don't have time to get there. So it's a learning curve. Yeah. Thanks.
I noticed that you use your mic a lot, like dynamically in a way for voice, whereas different entities. I mean, does that change your performance a lot?
Say it again. What does?
You use your mic quite dynamically,
Oh yeah.
moving back and forth. Does that change your performance?
Well, no. I mean, in this setting, what I'm hearing is what's going through the mic and what's coming back at me through the speakers, and so I'm able to work it, or I try to work it, like you said, to have dynamics and to make sure that I'm not overpowering Dom. My absolute favorite thing is to play without sound reinforcement, but it's basically like the same as far as I'm concerned. You know, I play soft, and also I'm shaping the notes with my hands to some degree. Just about every note I play is shaped with my hands, and some of them, you know, if I keep my hands really tight, then I can play really hard, and at the same time not be like real loud. And you know, but then my hands keep it, you know, quiet. Whereas if I was to do so, you know, it's a lot louder. So yeah, but it doesn't. You know, hopefully it doesn't change from one to the other.
Phil is probably the most dynamic harmonica player that you'll ever hear. I mean, I play with a lot of good harmonica players, but Phil has more dynamic than what you can ever hear in the way that he gets sounds out of it. So, yeah. Sorry, I play in a rock band as well, and I'm a bit hard of hearing, but I'm catching the story. So basically, I'm following Phil. Is that kind of the concept? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely by ear. I mean, like you said, I had my eyes shut a lot of the time. So,
Yeah.
but it's definitely, you know, by ear. Yeah, I mean, Dom is real strong and real solid rhythmically. Sometimes, you know, if I'm playing with someone where the rhythm tends to shift or whatever, you know, I'll watch them closer, or you know, a lot of times I'll watch like their foot, and I'll try to make my foot match their foot to keep locked in. But we don't have those kind of issues, and so I'm able to follow Dom just by keeping my ears open. And then, I mean, with us too, I mean, it's not like, you know, I noticed like on that last song, for instance, I mean, the rhythm is not like completely locked in. There's some push and pull that happens, but it's because we're human beings, and it's good. And we push and pull, but we still manage to stay together. Yeah.
That's a great question, actually. That one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. Just to add on that push and pull, if you listen to a lot of early recordings, and remembering that they're a recording, and the musicians were playing on a daily basis or weekly basis or whatever, and they may have modified what they were playing for the recording, so it's just really a snapshot of an idea of what they were doing. But when you listen to traditional rural musicians in particular, they don't normally play the song at the same speed throughout the song. They normally move the timing, and it's not that it's not that they're playing out of time. It's a conscious thing that they do, because that will embellish. You know, the dancers are really rocking out here. You know, we want to speed it up for them a little bit. You know, and then you might we've got a real emotional bit. We'll slow it back. You know, get on the back beat. So you'll hear movement within the songs. Sorry, as well. I'm sorry about that.
Yes.
Thanks for an excellent musicianship and doing brilliant harmonica.
Thank you, sir.
Every praise. But I'm also intrigued by what you just went into now about rhythm, and also your earlier remarks about dance, and the fact that your last piece, Chiropractic piece, had that sort of link through the Bahamas by dance. And Don has talked about the natural tradition around
mean, I have thoughts. I don't have like answers really. The only thing I can say is that it seems like there are certain areas of the U.S. and also of the Caribbean where the African culture was pretty much left alone. Like, you know, the laborers, you know, slaves were isolated, not influenced by the European culture much because there weren't very many Europeans around. So I'm thinking of places like the Georgia Sea Islands and probably a lot in the Mississippi Delta. I mean, you know, it's hot as hell down there, and bugs and people that had resources didn't hang around. So I noticed that in like, for instance, the Gullah culture is very similar in a lot of ways to some of the African communities that you would find in like Jamaica or, you know, other places in the Caribbean. I would say particularly like with what they call the Maroons, where the people that went off into the bush to escape, you know, the people getting their labor for free, and where their culture stayed, you know, more isolated. That's really about all I know about that. I mean, like I say, I hear the Bahamian influence in Charlie Patton in that song, but I have no idea why it's there.
Maybe just one more. And, yes.
As students were looking at our cultural identity, having that sort of inform our music, we heard in the song about the mermaids, floating mermaids, you're talking about the blues as part of your body, I think is one of the lyrics.
Yeah, blues all in my body, yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to quickly say something about famous comedian George Carlin once said that white people have no business playing the blues. It's their job to give people the blues. Given that you've just demonstrated that statement isn't entirely correct, there's a certain level of jest there. How do you guys feel about people's cultural identity excluding them or predisposing them to a certain style of music?
That's a very good question. I mean, I feel like that my particular, you know, the blues in particular, that it's very directly linked to your emotions. I mean, and to your feelings and to your life. And I think that you know, by having roots in Africa, that there's an aesthetic of like that there's not a big separation between, you know, performer and audience. You know, I mean, in the African communities, you know, music was a part of life. I mean, there was music for work, there was music for weddings, there was music as rites of passage, and everybody participated. You know, and I feel like, you know, that's a real strong part of it. I also feel like, you know, everybody, you know, has reasons to laugh and cry, and everybody struggles, and all those things are what this music is about. And so it's there for anyone who wants it. You know, I feel like, well, in the U.S., I mean, the issues come up when you start talking about like economics and whatnot, and there, you know, the African American culture, you know, historically hasn't had like access to, you know, the control of, you know, the industry, and so you have things like, you know, the Rolling Stones, for example, making like millions of dollars off a song that Robert Wilkins wrote, and most people have never heard of Robert Wilkins, you know, things like that. And so that, to me, I think is where the question of race comes into the music, and who owns it, and who, you know, where it came from. Because I mean, musicians, we don't care as long as, you know, as long as it's good, as long as you're not messing up the beat, you know, it's fine, you know. But so really, it's, I think when you start thinking about like the industry and the economics, that's where that comes into play.
Maybe we should thank Dom and Phil for being so generous with their time and their patience. And maybe if we could push that generosity one more bit and ask you to take us out with a song, I think that would be marvellous. Thanks again,
Okay.
thanks to Bruce.
No worries.
And
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
And just like a final thing, it's great. It's great to see you folks studying music and really thinking about it, and even just being here today. We really do appreciate the fact that you guys are really getting into music. You know.
All right.
This is another one of Phil's songs, an instrumental.
Yeah. That I stole straight from the piano. It's called Anacostia Two-Step. One, two. All right, thank you so much.
Phil Wiggins, ladies and gentlemen.